Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un. They're both in Singapore. Their meeting is being called historic, and with good reason. It will be the first time that a sitting American president is holding a summit with a North Korean leader. They're staying in separate hotels for the moment, but diplomats from both sides met today for some last-minute preparations for the summit tomorrow. Kim Jong-un was the first to arrive. He was received by Singapore's finance minister yesterday. This is the second time that Kim has stepped outside Pyongyang for a summit. The North Korean leader traveled for the first time to China in March for a surprise meeting with the Chinese President Xi Jinping. Surprise for the rest of the world, of course. Xi was expecting Kim. Kim Jong-un borrowed a plane from China to travel to Singapore. He brought his bodyguards an armoured limousine on another plane. 2 planes for this man, again loaned by China, the second plane too. The North Korean leader's cargo included food and other essentials for the visit, some interesting ones. We'll talk about that later. Beijing took special permission from Washington to ensure that Kim Jong-un gets 2 planes for this summit. Remember, as per the present sanctions, no country can loan planes to North Korea. On Sunday, Kim met with Singapore's Prime Minister. Just a few hours back, a flurry of activity was seen outside the St. Regis Hotel where Kim is staying. The North Korean leader was spotted walking around the Flower Dome at Gardens by the Bay with his entourage. He was also seen at the Marina Bay Sands and appeared to be heading up to the Sky Park. He's living it up there in Singapore. His sister Kim Yo-jong was spotted with him. Now let's see what the other leader is up to. American President Donald Trump. He had a packed schedule today. He had lunch with Singapore's Prime Minister, where he was presented with an early birthday cake. As I said, he turned 72 on Thursday. During this lunch meeting, he was optimistic about the summit tomorrow. He later spoke with the South Korean President Moon Jae-in over the phone. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo held a press conference later in the day. He said that sanctions on North Korea will continue until Pyongyang completely gives up its nuclear weapons. As for the rest of the city-state, almost all the hotels in Singapore are near capacity. Crowds have surrounded the 2 hotels where Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un are staying. Nearly 5,000 journalists are covering this historic event, but they will not be allowed inside the hotel or the summit venue. What a pity. Singapore has been turned into a fortress. Nearly 5,000 cops have been deployed to guard the city, and that's a huge number by Singapore standards because the total staff of their police force is barely 13,000. So you can say that almost half the Singapore police force has been deployed to guard 2 men, Kim and Trump. These 2 men have been at loggerheads for months now. Fireworks on Twitter had become almost routine. The name-calling was unprecedented between 2 heads of state. During his first year in office, Donald Trump targeted Kim with insults and even threats of a nuclear war. Kim was not one to mince words. He gave it back as good as he got. So the fact that they're meeting to talk peace is nothing short of miraculous. Here's how this came to pass.
To put it mildly, North Korea's nuclear missile program has been a headache for the Americans. For Kim Jong-un, it's his biggest bargaining chip. But in a recent wave of rapprochement, North Korea says it's willing to give up its nukes. And after much back and forth, Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un will meet for a summit in Singapore. The road to Singapore was not easy. The Americans and the North Koreans have been sworn enemies. Donald Trump's first year in office was marked by bitter exchanges with Kim Jong-un. The North Korean leader replied in kind, calling Trump mentally deranged and a dotard. The US president's name-calling, bluster and insults only added to the tensions.
North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen. Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime.
But 2018 brought with it a remarkable turnaround. Diplomatic overtures between North and South Koreas led to a thaw between the 2 sides.
Well, we're going to see what happens on Singapore. We're going to see. And it could happen, could very well happen. But whatever it is, we will know next week about Singapore. And if we go, I think it'll be a great thing for North Korea.
In March, Donald Trump announced that he has accepted an invitation from Kim Jong-un for a summit. Both leaders will be meeting at the secluded Sentosa Island in Singapore. But there's a shadow of skepticism over the summit. Donald Trump had even called off the meeting last month after a war of words between the two sides had resumed. Despite the hiccup, the summit is still on. Talks between the two leaders will be closely watched by more than 70 million people in the Korean peninsula. Bureau Report, WION.
Can you think of some parallels between the North Korean leader and the American president? You could call them both rebels. They're going against the system. You could say they're both tempestuous, risk takers even. But who would have thought of this one? They've both made headlines for their toilet seats. No, this is not a joke. This is not fake news either. Let's start with Kim Jong-un. He's in a foreign land right now, and he's not a traveler. He doesn't do it very often. So like most other leaders, he's carrying his personal belongings to feel at home. Well, a little more than the others, let's say. The North Korean leader has come with his own toilet, believe it or not. You might wonder why. This is what we've been told. This is what we've picked up. Kim Jong-un fears of being spied upon in a foreign land. He's not just brought his own food, but also a portable restroom to stop his tools from being inspected. North Korea fears that foreign agents may take an insight into Kim's secretive life. It is also believed that Kim's poop contains information about his health and hence cannot be left behind. That's serious. But it's not a revelation of sorts. Kim apparently has portable toilets in all his vehicles and carries them everywhere. You could call it eccentric. Donald Trump, on the other hand, was also in the news for a toilet seat not very long ago. An 18-carat gold seat, no less. According to the American media, Donald Trump is a man who is obsessed with everything fancy. He requested a museum for a Van Gogh painting for his personal residence. The museum did not oblige. Instead, they offered America's president a fully functional 18-carat gold toilet. They called it America, confirming how art can be a terrific way of challenging the powerful. And food too can be a terrific way of reaching out, striking a warm note perhaps. Singapore is not holding back. It's laid out the table, not just for the two leaders, but all the visitors and locals as well. In the flavors of this summit, WION's Ramesh Ramachandran visited a Mexican restaurant which has designed special tacos and pinatas for this occasion. Take a look.
Continuous coverage here on WION of the much anticipated meeting between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un from Singapore brings us to this quaint little restaurant called Lucha Loco, a Mexican themed restaurant here in Singapore, which has designed a special menu befitting the occasion of the Trump-Kim summit. Now, this restaurant has been in the news ever since they created a special menu honoring the two leaders, Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un. Let's go in for a special tasting session. Join me. All right, so I'm inside the Lucha Loco restaurant here in Singapore, which is in the news after it designed a special menu befitting the occasion of the much anticipated meeting between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un here in Singapore. And joining me for more on this story is Leon Fong, the group marketing manager of the Lucha Loco restaurant. Let's talk to him.
Hey, Ramesh.
Hi,
How are you?
How are you? Good.
Yes.
Thank you for making time to speak to us about your special menu.
Sure.
So talk us through some of the piñatas and the taco that you've designed for the Trump-Kim summit.
Look, it's a very rare occasion for two very controversial leaders to meet in Singapore, and we are Lucha Loco. We wanted to do something fun, something sort of lighthearted, a little bit tongue-in-cheek to celebrate this event. So we've actually created two very special tacos that represent each country. First being the El Trumpo taco, which is inspired by the U.S. Yes, this is the El Trumpo taco. And then we have come up with the Korean taco, which is the Rocket Man taco, which is Korean fried chicken. So yeah, the U.S. taco is a burger. It's inspired by a cheeseburger. It's molten melted cheese on top of a beef patty that we mince ourselves. It's filled with chipotle sauce, barbecue sauce, with burger sauce, and on top of that, it's finished with pickled gherkins. Yeah, the Korean chicken or Korean taco, on the other hand, it's double fried Korean fried chicken It's glazed with a gochujang paste type of marinade, and then on top of that, it's finished off with sesame seeds and radishes.
And you're calling it the Loco Taco Summit. So just I'm curious to ask you, so who do you think is winning this contest, the face-off here?
That's a tough one. Lucha Loco is very much based on Lucha Libre, which is the wrestling, culture in Mexico. So we wanted to play on the fact that both presidents of both leaders were going to wrestle each other. But jokes aside, I hope that the summit will bring peace. I hope that we'll have a very good outcome from this occasion. I think it's the very first time that the U.S. president is meeting a North Korean leader, right? So just that in itself, I think is an achievement worth celebrating.
All right, on that note, Leon, thank you so much for making time to speak to us. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So there you heard it from Leon Fong, the group marketing manager of Lucha Loco restaurant here in Singapore, which has come out with a special menu of tacos and the piñatas befitting the occasion of the Trump-Kim summit. Now, we're calling it the Trump-Kim culinary face-off. Who is winning, who is not, we'll come to know on Tuesday morning. With video journalist Mukesh Thankla, I'm Ramesh Ramachandran in Singapore for WION.
Well, the world has not seen much of Kim Jong-un. He hardly steps out of Pyongyang, and he held his first bilateral engagement only this year. But there's a man who looks like him, who was detained by the security officials in Singapore and who's leaving quite an impression at this summit. Take a look.
In 2011, when Kim Jong-un came on the scene, his father was still alive, Kim Jong-il, and he introduced Kim Jong-un, his son, to the public. And as soon as he came out, I thought, wow, this guy looks like me, And then when everybody started saying so, I thought, well, it's not just me, it's everybody. Well, I can make some money impersonating it. Since the election of Donald Trump, and by me teaming up with Dennis Allen, the Trump impersonator, my business have shot up. Requests for interviews have shot up because when you work in a team, there's a good dynamic between Kim and Trump. And I think because the world is just so crazy right now, people need a comedy relief, and we provide that. When my family found out what I was doing, they thought it was funny, but they said, you better watch out. And I think my mom bought a life insurance policy. So in case I get killed or murdered, she's gonna make some money. And the process is like 3 hours of getting the haircut, and I had to invest on, doing the makeup. And probably the best part of this job, I get to eat really delicious food, and I have the perfect excuse to get fat. I felt that as my career depends on this, I need to be there, take out of the whole situation.
Every once in a while, the world sees a meeting that can potentially change the course of history. Tomorrow's meeting will be one such. As we look ahead to Tuesday's talks, we also look back at handshakes that redrew global power equations. It's the week of summits. One event, 6 photos, 6 different stories of what happened. When some of the world's most powerful leaders meet, one is eager to know who had the final word, who had the upper hand. But if you look at the 6 different official photos that have emerged from the G7 summit in Canada recently, you'll realize it's all about perspective. There was one tense meeting and several completely different photos of what transpired. You decide for yourself.
One key moment in a 2-day meet of the world's 7 richest democracies. The G7 summit was coming down to the wire. The leaders had promised some kind of compromise statement despite their deep divisions on trade. But if you were to ask what happened at the meet, the answer would depend on which photo you decided to go by. That's because each of the countries present at that tense meeting released their own official photo with an entirely different perspective of the same event. The White House released the first view of the scene with this photo. In the American version, Donald Trump can be seen apparently calm, leaning back confidently with a skeptical, almost sarcastic air. His arms crossed in a rebuff to the other leaders, bent towards him pleadingly. Within minutes, the French president's office responded with a different portrait, this one taken from the opposite angle. The French photo shows Macron negotiating with his American counterpart, gesticulating to make a point. The other leaders have fixed him with their regard, apparently fascinated. Merkel's face is hidden by a neighboring official's head. That's when Merkel's press team responded with this photo, showing the German Chancellor dominant. Her fists planted on the table, she looms above an apparently nervous Trump, looking up at her and listening without response. Something about the photo caught the imagination of the web, and it was the German version that went viral, popping up all over social media and generating a series of memes. Then came the Italian's version, a relatively humble one that perhaps reflected that Italian Premier Giuseppe Conte had been in the job for fewer than 3 full days. Not to be left behind, Japan released this official photo showing Prime Minister Abe with his fists on the table, looking questioningly at Donald Trump. Finally, hosts Canada got in the last word. The frame is wider in their official photo and makes sure host Trudeau, absent from other images, is visible. Clearly, the G7 power equation lies in the angle of the beholder. Bureau Report, WION.